Hey everyone, welcome back to Echoes of the Past, the lesson where we explore the stories that shaped our world. Today's agenda is all about one of the most catastrophic and world-changing events in modern history, the First World War, also known as the Great War. Now, this wasn't just a war between a few countries. It was a global conflict that involved more than 70 million military personnel, caused the death of over 17 million people, and reshaped the political map of the world. So grab a cup of tea or settle in, because we're going deep into this devastating yet crucial chapter of human history. Chapter 1: A World on Edge. To understand how World War I began, we have to go back to the early 1900s. Europe was a powder keg, filled with political tensions, rivalries, and ambitions. The five major powers, Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia, were all jockeying for position. They were building up military forces, forming alliances, and expanding empires. Everyone was suspicious of everyone else. Let's break down the four major causes of the war. 1. Militarism. Countries were pouring money into weapons and armies. Germany and Britain, in particular, were locked in a naval arms race. Military leaders held great political power. 2. Alliances. Europe was divided into two main alliance systems. The Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. The Triple Entente, Britain, France, and Russia. These alliances meant that if one country went to war, others would be dragged in automatically. 3. Imperialism. European countries were competing for colonies and economic dominance in Africa and Asia. This fueled jealousy and conflict, especially between Britain and Germany. 4. Nationalism. Ethnic groups wanted independence, and countries like Germany and France had deep historical rivalries. National pride made war seem honorable, even desirable. The spark came on June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated in Sarajevo by a Bosnian Serb nationalist named Gavrilo Princip. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia, issued an ultimatum, and eventually declared war. Because of alliances, this localized conflict exploded into a global war within weeks. Chapter 2: The World at War. By August 1914, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia, France, and Britain were all involved in the conflict. The world was plunged into war. Germany quickly invaded Belgium, trying to reach France, a move that brought Britain into the war. Germany's plan, called the Schlieffen Plan, was to defeat France quickly, then move to fight Russia. But the plan failed. Instead of a quick victory, the war bogged down into a brutal stalemate. Life in the trenches. On the Western Front, stretching from the North Sea to Switzerland, both sides dug long trenches, sometimes just a few hundred feet apart. Between them was the dreaded no man's land. Conditions in the trenches were horrific. Mud, rats, lice, hunger, and disease were part of daily life. Soldiers lived in constant fear of sniper fire, artillery shelling, and gas attacks. This was a new kind of war, industrial warfare. Traditional tactics met modern weapons. Machine guns mowed down waves of soldiers. Artillery caused more deaths than any other weapon. Poison gas like chlorine and mustard gas was used to terrorize enemy troops. Tanks, though primitive, were introduced to break through enemy lines. Airplanes were used for scouting and, later, bombing. Submarines, especially German U-boats, attacked Allied shipping. The Battle of the Somme in 1916 saw over 1 million casualties in just 4 months. The Battle of Verdun, another symbol of horror, lasted nearly a year. Beyond Europe, World War I truly was global. The Ottoman Empire joined the Central Powers and fought in the Middle East. Japan joined the Allies and seized German colonies in Asia. In Africa, colonial troops were drawn into European battles. In India, Australia, Canada, and other British colonies sent troops to fight in Europe. In 1917, two major events changed everything. First, Russia withdrew from the war after the Russian Revolution. The Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with Germany, ending fighting on the Eastern Front. Second, the United States entered the war. German U-boat attacks on American ships and the Zimmermann telegram, in which Germany tried to ally with Mexico, pushed the U.S. to act. In April 1917, the U.S. declared war on Germany. Fresh American troops, equipment, and morale began to tip the balance. Chapter 3: The War Ends. By 1918, Germany and its allies were exhausted. Their people were starving, their armies were collapsing, and revolutions were breaking out at home. On November 11, 1918, at 11 a.m., the guns finally fell silent. An armistice was signed, and the war was over. But peace wouldn't come easily. In 1919, the Treaty of Versailles was signed. It was harsh. Germany had to accept full responsibility for the war, the infamous Article 231. Pay massive reparations. Lose territory in Europe and all its overseas colonies. Reduce its military to a tiny force. Many Germans saw the treaty as a humiliation, and it planted the seeds for future conflict, especially the rise of Adolf Hitler and World War II. Chapter 4: The Aftermath. Let's talk about the legacy of World War I. Empires collapsed. The German, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian empires all fell. New nations emerged: Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and others. The League of Nations was formed to promote peace, though it had little power and failed to prevent another world war. Over 21 million soldiers were wounded, and millions more suffered from shell shock, what we now call PTSD. The Spanish flu pandemic spread in 1918, killing even more than the war itself. Culturally, the war led to a lost generation, a wave of disillusioned youth and artists who had seen the worst of humanity. Writers like Erich Maria Remarque, Wilfred Owen, and Siegfried Sassoon captured the horror and futility of war in their works. Final thoughts. The First World War changed everything. It taught us that no one truly wins a war. It showed the world the terrifying cost of unchecked nationalism, imperialism, and hatred. And yet, within those dark years, we also find stories of bravery, friendship, sacrifice, and survival. As we look back more than a century later, we honor not just the soldiers and leaders, but the millions of ordinary people who lived through unimaginable times. Their stories remind us that peace is precious and never guaranteed. So today, whether you're listening from a quiet home or a busy street, take a moment to reflect on how far we've come, and the lessons we must never forget. That's it for this extended episode of Echoes of the Past. If you found it meaningful, share it with someone, leave a review, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most powerful moments. Got a topic you want us to explore next? Reach out on social media or leave a comment. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and never stop learning.